message again that our biodiversity, especially in our oceans, is so crucial to our survival, to the health of the ocean, to the health of the planet. Really great to have you joining us live from Australia today.
No worries. Thanks again, Joe. It's a fantastic opportunity, and congratulations and good luck for the rest of the weekend. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brad. We'll let you get on with your day, and I'm going to let in our next host and our next speaker. We're gonna head away from the ocean to the freshwater realm. So let Wes and Joe in to come and join us. Hey, Wes, how are you?
Hey.
And there is Joe. He's just got to turn his sound on.
How's everyone doing tonight? How's your Friday treating you over here as we're getting into what this is hour like 10, I think? You've been going for almost it's a lot of great science, a lot of great stories.
It has been a marathon, no question at all, but it's been a total blast. We've been all over the world. I just did a triple header of ocean action, so that's why I'm excited to get into the freshwater now and rinse off some of that salt. Make sure my scuba gear is going to be okay when I put it away to dry. And Joe, I just want to stay in here for just a second and say, hey man, so good to see you. The other half of Joe Squared, and we can't wait for your presentation today.
Thank you so much, Joe. And great to see you, and great to see you, Wes.
Oh, it's always a good time to see you. I mean, I've got my waders ready. I'm ready to go into the tide pools and check out some freshwater everything because I've never met someone who is so passionate about fish and water and just being out in wildlife. I think then Joe and Joe Squared, like this is amazing to have both of you here. So really excited to have Joe Cutler with us, who is going to be telling us about he's an ichthyologist, so he's going to be talking with us about fish, and he's been working in Gabon and other countries in Central Africa, looking at fish biodiversity within freshwater systems in those places. And no one does share that passion with everyone he interacts with when it comes to fish than you, Joe. So as someone who's experienced it firsthand, I'm glad that we get to share it tonight with everyone, with you. So with that, I think we should get started. So if you want to bring up your presentation, we'll get going.
Thank you so much, Wes. I'll do that. Let me share my screen here.
Perfect.
I totally love fish. I'm a total fish freak, but I love all biodiversity. I'm not discriminant or anything. And fish are really cool. They live absolutely anywhere that's wet. Some fish, they even go onto land. Some fish live underground, and other fishes leap into the air to catch birds as they fly by. Now, we are all fish. All humans are fish, albeit highly evolved fish. And for those of you who are fish haters, I hope that today's talk will get you a little bit more excited about fish. So my goal today is to share some stories about fantastic fishes and a little bit about what their future looks like. And at the end, I hope to have a few minutes left over to field questions. So I hope there'll be a lot of those as well. So today, I'm going to share 3 mini stories. One about a volcanic crater lake and its fantastic residents. A second about freaky fishes that talk with electricity. And a final story about a sneaky little tadpole that's found a very clever way of disguising itself. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Joe Cutler, and I'm a freshwater ecologist, ichthyologist, and conservation biologist. I'm also a National Geographic explorer, and I've spent the past 10 years surveying freshwater ecosystems and freshwater diversity. My work has taken me from Mongolia all the way to Malawi, but my scientific research is focused primarily on the Central African countries of Cameroon and Gabon, where I study the diversity, distribution, and conservation of freshwater fishes. Now, let me assure you, I have spent a lot of time tromping around, and my work is not always glamorous. Oh, I lost my screen share.
All right. Well, we'll fix that. We'll get that fixed. That's an easy one. Just go ahead and try and screen share again, and we should be able to bring it back up.
Okay, sorry about that.
Not a problem. We got you. That's the important thing. We can still get to hear about all the fish stories once we get that back up and running. And
okay,
not,
give me a second. It seems to have
yeah.
shut my PowerPoint also. So opening that presentation up right now, sharing screen.
This is the fun of every live event. You never know what's going to happen, so you got to pay attention, stay on your toes, and now we get some more fish stories.
Yes, back to the fishes, where we should be, right?
Exactly. It's all about fishes all the time.
Okay.
Or is it fish? There we go.
We're back at it. I don't know if PowerPoint didn't like this video, but I've spent a lot of time tromping around, and my work is not always glamorous. It seems like it's either always raining or it's super hot, and I've been bitten by mosquitoes, leeches, ticks, wasps, tsetse flies, and furious ants. Oftentimes, despite our best efforts, we don't catch very many fishes. But over the course of my career, I've encountered some amazing biodiversity, and I love what I do. I find myself at the nexus, at the interface between exploration, scientific research, and conservation. I hope that my research gets people excited about fishes and their habitats so that we can focus our conservation efforts. I want to help protect these incredible freshwater ecosystems. Ecosystems like this. This is the Ugue River, Gabon's great river. Not only is it beautiful, but it is full of amazing creatures. Much like tropical rainforests and coral reefs, freshwaters are biodiversity hotspots, areas that are much more diverse than we might expect given their size. Freshwater ecosystems are lakes, rivers, and wetlands. They cover less than 1% of Earth's surface, but they're home to over 25% of all living vertebrate species, including over 15,000 fish species. On the Ugue, you might find kingfishers, skimmers, hammerkop, manatee, hippopotamus, African clawless otters, dwarf crocodiles, soft-shelled turtles, and even forest elephants. But the most diverse freshwater vertebrate lineage are the fishes, and I've fallen in love with them. So let me tell you about my first freshwater love, a volcanic crater lake named Berman. Lake Berman is a volcanic crater lake located in southwest Cameroon. Now, it is a tiny lake. It's not very deep, and you can see the whole lake in this photograph. But Lake Berman is famous among biologists as one of the world's most biodiverse and unique habitats. I practically stumbled upon Lake Berman in 2010 while I was serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in Cameroon. And of course, I jumped right in. This was the first time I'd conducted my own research, and I really didn't know very much at the time, but I was very excited. I planned to spend a lot of time snorkeling and observing the fishes so that I could study their behavior in the wild. And then I would collect specimen for further analysis. And snorkeling in Lake Berman is a little funky. You know, the water's really murky, you're swimming around, it's totally creepy, you're all alone. And one day as I was snorkeling, I noticed this weird white object approaching. And as it materialized through the murk, I realized that it was the mouth of a 6-foot-long water snake swimming right at me. And the snake's mouth was wide open and it's searching for a prey item. Of course, I swam away as fast as I could and climbed back ashore, waited to make sure that the passing snake had passed me. But it didn't take me long to get my nerve back up and get back in the water because Berman's fishes were calling. Now, this is one of the first photographs of a mating pair of Coptodon gutturosa ever taken in the wild. The much larger male is on the right, and the smaller, slightly darker female is in the center of the frame. As I snorkeled more around Berman, I found that some species seemed to prefer to nest in rock crevices, while others dug holes in the soft sediments to build their nests. Some species just laid their eggs atop submerged logs, but they actively defended their eggs and fry. I felt like I was diving on a very, very murky coral reef, but a coral reef that had barely been studied by scientists. But the people of the nearby Berman village totally knew all the species in the lake. These elementary school age kids, they would build their own rafts, they'd build their own fishing poles, they'd go dig up worms or collect termite larvae for bait, and then they'd paddle out into the center of the lake and fish. And they would focus their fishing effort on one species, the largest species, Coptodon imbriferna. Now, this is a filter feeder, so it's eating phytoplankton, the bottom of the food web. This is probably the most sustainable option in terms of harvest from this lake. And I had a lot to learn from the local people. So after recruiting a few experts, my sampling really took off. I was able to find and identify the fishes. And the community told me about when and where the fishes feed and where they breed. And they gave me all the names in Akosi, the local dialect for the fishes. One of the things that I found really fascinating was when I arrived at Berman, there were 10 known fish species in this lake. But the people of Berman had 16 names. So either the scientists are missing something or the local populations are seeing something that we're not. And I was starting really to learn that even the experts who wrote the book, maybe they weren't so sure. So I started collecting specimens. And obviously I spent a little too much time in the water with those pruny hands, but take a look at this net full of fish. The fishes of Berman they're bright and they're colorful and they're unique. And there are, probably 15 fish in my hand. But what's amazing is that there are 5 different species. 4 cichlid species in the genus Coptodon and 1 tiny minnow. Now, each of these fish species is endemic to Lake Berman. They are found nowhere else in the world other than in this little teeny tiny volcanic crater lake. And therefore, every single one of these fishes is critically endangered. One handful of fish out of a lake like Berman, and you will be astounded by biodiversity and the richness of life on this planet. So, I was there for several years. I took a few specimens back to the lab. And when my colleagues and I analyzed their DNA, we found that these species, really distinctive fish, they actually represent a hybrid swarm, that these fish occasionally mate with the wrong species. And we even found evidence of gene flow between the fishes in the lake and the surrounding river systems. How these species remain morphologically distinct is still a question I would love to test, but I imagine that there's really strong disruptive selection on key traits, including breeding behavior and timing. Clearly, there's a lot more to learn about these fishes. And Berman held another surprise. While I was sampling Lake Berman, I discovered an undescribed species of killie unknown from the lake. And in my opinion, this may be one of the most beautiful fishes in the world. Boom. Wow. Right? Really stunning, I think. This tiny, unnamed killifish is found only in the inlet streams and their confluences with Lake Berman. The discovery of this killifish brings the total fish diversity of Lake Berman to 11 endemic fish species. This makes Berman one of the richest and certainly one of the most endemic ecosystems in the world. But Berman is such a small, isolated system that if anything happens to the lake, these species will disappear from the wild. Thankfully, the local community has developed, locally adapted fisheries management techniques and conservation strategies to help protect these fishes and their fragile environment into the future. When I finished the Peace Corps in 2013, these young fishermen and their families, they continue to be the protectors of Lake Berman. So if you'd like to help them protect this unique ecosystem, I'd love to help put you in touch with them because they're really doing something important for protecting biodiversity. My second two stories I'd like to share today take place in Gabon. In Gabon, most of the country lies within the Ugue watershed, the great river that I showed earlier in my presentation. And during the rainy season, the Ugue, it floods its banks and covers a huge portion of Gabon's interior with seasonal wetlands. These super productive ecosystems make Gabon a freshwater biodiversity hotspot, and Gabon's Ugue River is one of the most diverse rivers in the world. But in my opinion, of all the animals in Gabon, I think the most amazing are the elephant fish, or mormyrids, because these fish, they can talk with electricity. They're also really weird looking. Mormyrids are bizarre, cryptic, nocturnal fishes. They come in various shapes and sizes, but their most extraordinary adaptation is their capacity to electro-navigate, to electrocommunicate. They have an electrosensory system, almost unique. And so these fish, yes, they produce electricity to communicate with one another. Mind blown, right? Totally crazy, I think. Now, mormyrids produce a very low voltage electrical discharge from a small region in the tail known as the caudal peduncle. There we go. I can shrink that down. Like a tiny battery pack, specialized cells known as electrocytes generate a pulse of electricity by simultaneously discharging. This sends a wave of electricity into the environment. And much like bats use sonar, mormyrids can use this electrosense to orient and navigate within their environment. They've got a huge brain, honestly comparable in size compared to their body to a human's brain, maybe even larger than some. And their brain is specially equipped to receive and process electrical data. And you may ask, how are these fish able to communicate with electricity? Well, research shows that each mormyrid species has a unique electric discharge waveform, and species can be distinguished by this waveform, much like a fingerprint. So mormyrids cannot change their waveform, but what they can do is they can change the frequency and pattern of these electrical discharges. So mormyrid communication can be roughly equated to Morse code. And social displays, including greetings, threats, alarms, and courtships, they all have their unique calls. Scientists can now listen in on mormyrid conversations by placing sensitive electrodes into stream environments. And by documenting the waveform, we can identify species, and by listening to the Morse code or song, we can decode their conversations. I think this is absolutely amazing. These bizarre fishes are communicating with electricity in the freshwaters of Africa, and we now have the capacity to eavesdrop. Imagine what we may hear. But that's not all. New species are being discovered and described all the time, especially mormyrids. Just 3 years ago, my colleagues and I collected this fish, now named Crypt Amira oguensis. Now, what's amazing is that this fish and 2 other specimens, they represent an unknown branch of the mormyrid lineage, a completely new genus of fishes. Given that mormyrids have been around since the time of the dinosaurs, I bet that mormyrids still hold a few incredible surprises. And for my third story, I'd like to take you into uncharted waters, because sometimes my research takes me into uncharted waters. On a recent expedition, my team and I became the first group to survey this swamp in Gabon's Evindo National Park. No one knew what lived there. We expected to find crocodiles and rock pythons and Gabon vipers, and of course, an amazing amount of fish diversity. But our most exciting discovery was something that we never expected. So let me preface it. Let me tell you a little bit about another electric fish, the electric catfish. Electric catfish are not at all like mormyrids. They produce electricity, but they cannot communicate with electricity, and they can't even navigate with it. But they can produce a huge shock that they use to stun their prey and deter predators. Now, this photo shows a baby electric catfish, probably only about 4 inches long. I think that they look very silly, kind of like a swimming sausage. But even a baby catfish, it produces a strong electric shock. And once they're all grown up and 2 feet long and big and ugly, they can produce up to 400 volts of electricity. Now, for reference, wall outlets in the US are 110 volts. So 400 volts is definitely enough to paralyze potential prey items and shock the unwitting ichthyologist who's tromping through the swamp. Now, these electric catfish are so distinctive with their pink skin, black banded tails, and remarkable capacity to produce electricity that everyone in sub-Saharan Africa knows of these fish. But no one in the whole world knew they had a mimic until my team and I surveyed that swamp where we collected this tiny tadpole disguised as an electric catfish. Much like harmless king snakes mimic deadly coral snakes, this tadpole produces no electricity, but it looks so similar to an electric catfish that it can avoid predation. It even fooled a whole team of ichthyologists despite having hind legs. Now, this is a completely new example of Batesian mimicry and a great reminder of the ingenuity of evolution and the wonders of biodiversity. From volcanic crater lakes and hybridization driving speciation to more myrids that sing with electricity, I find freshwater ecosystems fascinating. And gosh, I love freshwater biodiversity. But I am worried a little bit about the future of biodiversity, especially in fresh waters. Now, freshwater ecosystems are among the most threatened in the world, and over 20% of freshwater fishes are considered threatened with extinction. We have well-established methods of protecting terrestrial and marine habitats, but very few freshwater ecosystems are protected and many remain unexplored. We may lose species before they're discovered. Human activities, mining, dams, deforestation, habitat conversion, and introduced species, they threaten freshwater biodiversity habitats. For example, in Gabon, there are 4 existing dams, but a lot more are going to be built. There are 38 proposed dam sites sprinkled across the country, including 14 on the main stem of the Ugue River, that great river I was telling you about. If those dams are built before we survey it, we're going to lose all that diversity really quickly. So this photo shows the only dam on the Ugue main stem, the Grand Pubar. What's a tragedy is no one surveyed the fish of this region before the dam was built. Nobody has surveyed it since, and we have no idea what was out there. We have no idea what was lost. I want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I want to make sure that we discover biodiversity so that we can protect it. So I'd like to briefly share a little bit about my next project before opening it up to questions. So with funding from National Geographic, I'm putting together an expedition to survey Gabon's Ugue River and collect baseline biodiversity data at the 14 proposed dam sites on the main stem. My team and I will paddle 1,000 kilometers slowly from the Congo border to the Atlantic Ocean, slowly traversing the whole country of Gabon. This will be the first descent of the Ugue. No one has ever tried to paddle it, and the Ugue is a big river, the 4th largest by flow rate in Africa, fully equipped with whirlpools, quicksand, and hippos. But if we don't survey the Ugue, and if those dams are built, we will lose a lot of biodiversity before we knew it existed. Our goal is to document the biodiversity of the Ugue River and promote its protection. My name is Joe Cutler, and I believe that together we can help protect freshwater ecosystems, including the Ugue, one of Africa's last wild rivers. please feel free to reach out or follow along on Instagram at Africa's Last Wild River and at Cutler's Catch. Thank you very much, and I'd happily take some questions.
Well, questions are, of course, always a great thing to get, because I know there's a lot of people curious about fish and also curious about what they can do, how they can help. And I think one of the first questions, though, that I'm checking in and noticing is, so how did you get, I mean, it sounds like you jumped in the river and got, saw fish. What was like, now what keeps you so excited about them? What got you so interested? What was it about that first fish that was like, I've got to do this now?
Gosh, Wes, if it wasn't fish, it would be birds, or it'd be salamanders, or it would be snakes, or it'd be dinosaurs, or it'd be plants, or it'd be insects. I mean, honestly, I was collecting beetles in Gabon or in Cameroon before I started collecting fish. I'm just kind of a wildlife freak. I just love animals. If I could have every pet in the world, I totally would. Even the skunks and the rats, they don't bother me too much, and they're all part of the whole cycle. And so, I just kind of fell into fish because I found this extraordinary ecosystem in Cameroon. I'd always loved fish. I come from a family of fisher people, so it seemed like a very natural path, and I feel so lucky. So that's why I'm still excited, because it's awesome.
Well, now I've got to ask, because you brought it up, like you'd have every animal as pets. How many do you have pets? Like, being out in the field so often, do you have any at home that you call pets? And what might be the most unexpected one? Is there a skunk?
Yeah. Oh, no skunks, unfortunately. I have 3 very loving cows. And you may not think that cows can be very loving, but they are extremely loving, and they just walk right up to you, and they're a little drooly and licky, but they love you, and they love being scratched, and they love being fed, and I definitely consider them pets. They don't sleep in the bed, though.
Well, I don't let my pet sleep in the bed either. That's always kind of been my thing. Like, I need one space that's just my own. I feel good personal space is kind of important for a healthy relationship. So you've got to take that into account. So with the fish that you're working with, it seems like you're taking a lot of information. And what are you looking for, and determining what's a new species and what's not? Because I do look at a lot of the fish. Now, I'm not an ichthyologist. Be upfront about that. They all kind of look the same. I mean, not the pink catfish or the kind of glittery rainbow fish that you discovered, but how do you tell them apart? What kind of separates particular species from one another when they kind of all look the same?
It honestly totally depends on the group of fish. Like, catfish have no scales, so you can't count the scales on them. But usually you're looking for things like, how many fin rays do they have on their dorsal fin? What's the distance in between their eyes? What are the different muscle attachments? There's a lot of little intricate details on a fish that you can use to compare different species. But generally what we do is we go out, we have an idea of what could be in the area. Yeah. And then if we're collecting something and we say, that doesn't seem like anything that should be in the area, that raises a little red flag. And then we pull out all the books and start sending emails to references. And in the modern day age, you can have a live fish in the field in Central Africa. You can take a photograph of it. You can put it on Facebook, and you can get the world's ichthyologists to identify this fish. So we've done a little bit of outsourcing. I'll tell you, all the killifish, I just take a nice photograph and I send it to one of my friends, because he's way better at identifying killifish than I am. So, we kind of crowdsource a lot of it, but you know what you're looking for. And when there's something weird, it definitely raises a little, you're like, ooh, that's something. We should check that one out.
That is incredible to think that now you can instantly share it with the world from a river in the middle of, a remote location, and connect with people and get feedback and discover a new species that's unknown to science like that.
Yeah, the power of modern technology. And actually, I've done a few live streams through the Explorer Classroom program from the field in Gabon. So once COVID passes and we can get back into the field, I'm sure we'll be doing some more of those. So if you want to tune in and check it out. I'd be happy to show you around, take you on the tour of fishing in Gabon.
Well, it sounds like something great to look forward to. Definitely want to thank you, Joe, for spending some time with us, sharing your fish stories and your passion for everything with all of us here. We're going to welcome in our next presenter. Is Kristen Leer. We're going to have a little overlap, let you all say hello as we get everyone switched in. So let's bring Kristen in. Hopefully this comes up. Look, we got a new screen. We've got everything from freshwater fish to bats. So we're going to make a big transition and go from water to sky. So again, thank you, Joe and Kristen. We're going to get started with you. Wanted you all to get a quick hi. I know in this time it's all like collaborating, getting together.
I know.
No way we get to see all our friends.
We need to have another Explorers Festival.
We do.
Those will be coming, I'm sure. We're going to all get back to seeing each other. But for now, we get a quick little hello and thank you. And we'll see Joe later, hopefully soon.